Hi everybody. Looks like I found a good spot. This is my third choice, but it's pretty nice for a third choice. It's third choice only because I think I've done one from here before. So we got the Menard Tennis Center right over there. This is the southwest corner of the lake. Trying to make a half moon lake, you know how that's shaped. So we're in the southwest corner of that. I all day I was looking at the wind coming from the south, blowing the beautiful feather grass outside our parish offices. I gotta find a place sheltered from the wind that blocks a strong southern wind. It's gusts at 25 miles an hour right now. So anyway, I had this great spot picked out, and I was halfway there, and I just thought, God, the wind doesn't seem like it's from the south. And I checked it shifted. It's from the west. So then I was gonna go upshore here actually. The city of Eau Claire finished this little spur off this new concrete trail they built from the Rod and Gun Club to the tennis center here along the western shore of Half Moon Lake. And there were two young people who appeared very much in love sitting at the end of the dock there. I just didn't feel like setting up my tripod and didn't want to intrude on that. So anyway, so here I am at an old favorite. I gotta not be too long. I guess I'm gonna try to not be so long, but I want to tell this story, my favorite St. Francis story, which is takes a little time at the end. But I got some parish news. I want to talk a little bit about the big goings on in the Vatican this week. The Synod on synodality, and then my St. Francis story. So it's the Feast of St. Francis today. Happy Feast of St. Francis. So it's very appropriate. We're not inside, but we're outside in nature. Some really good movies about St. Francis. One maybe is a little more PG-13ish, but it's called Francesco. Mickey Rourke, of all people, played St. Francis. But it was good. I remember a scene where he founded this order just based on total poverty, and and they would sustain themselves living with the poor, begging for their daily bread from people that would share. And then his followers were like, we're inspired, we just want to rely on God, but we want houses too. And they would build a house, and he would go up on the roof and he'd take all the tiles off the house and start tearing the house down. He goes, what do you want us to do? Live with the squirrels? And he goes, yeah, live with the squirrels. Let's live with the squirrels. I don't know how accurate that was to history, but it showed kind of his joy and his poverty, his humility. Just a lot of great stories about St. Francis. So here we are. Maybe we'll get lucky and a squirrel will come by. There's a bunch of geese out on the water today. I don't know if you can see them from this angle. But so some parish news. How about? Okay, Danielle, our school principal, reported in. They're still looking for a guidance counselor. If you got anybody out there with that skill set and accreditation, we're looking for a guidance counselor. It's the only personnel slot not filled at Regis Catholic Schools. And it's half-time at St. James and half-time at St. Mary's. So they're doing their best kind of covering for that position. I know they're all a little bit busier because they don't have that person in that slot. But it's going good. If you come to church on this weekend, hopefully the chalk art will be, it's not quite as elaborate as the Chalk Fest at UW Eau Claire that they have in the summer. But the theme today was kindness, acts of kindness, and they went out with colored chalk and drew hearts and nice messages on the concrete sidewalk in front of the main entrance to church. So hopefully it'll be there for people when they come to Mass this weekend. We'll see. Outdoor Mass will be this weekend, and unlike the other outdoor Masses, this one will be at the Last Supper sculpture. We'll actually use the Last Supper sculpture table as our altar. The problem is that it's going to be cold, so I think they're thinking high in the low 50s that day, and we don't have Mass till 6. So Jackie said she's going to wear a snowmobile suit, and I said, if you wear your snowmobile suit, just watch out, I might push you over. It reminds me of when I was in grade school and we'd play King of the Mountain and push people over. So people always look kind of cute in their snowmobile suits, you know, like those sumo wrestlers at the Express Games where they come out and in those big blow up things and they bump into each other until one of them falls over. The things that humor us, huh? Or me anyway. Anyway, so that'll be at 6 o'clock on Saturday, October 7th. And that'll be our last outdoor Mass of the year. Okay, let's see. So the women's retreat's going to happen on October 13th. They got a little over 20 people for that. I know everyone's really pleased. It should go really well. And that'll close with Mass on be a morning, afternoon Mass. But because we're done with recruiting for that, I can now announce that we will have a 2-day retreat at St. John's Abbey. Not as elaborate, not as focused. Honestly, well, it's up to you what you want to make it, but we'll kind of fill our time with praying with the monks. So this is what will happen. This will be like our 5th one, I think. But oftentimes people bail and they leave early. We're going to try to make it 2 full days. We'll leave Monday morning, November 13th, and we'll catch midday prayer and lunch with the sisters at St. College of St. Benedict. The sisters who used to live in Eau Claire here. Little wind there. So hopefully we'll see Sister Michaela, Sister Judy, Sister Karen, Sister Lucy was there last time. They're all eager to see us if they're able, but so it's always good to reconnect. I used to be their chaplain in the 90s and early 00s. And so I love them, and I think they like me pretty well, so it's always a joy to see them again. So we get to experience that with the women, and then we'll head over to St. John's Abbey where the male monks live, and we'll stay at the guest house overnight. Food is really good, and the prayer is really unique, probably unlike any way you've prayed before. It's a liturgy of the hours, but it's very deliberate, very slow and beautiful. And we'll have opportunities to do a little touring. But if you want to go and kind of hang out by yourself and reflect while the group, I'll just schedule some things for the group that can be kind of fun, like the Pottery Center, the Bible, St. John's Bible Tour. It's a handwritten, hand-illuminated Bible. Beautiful, incredible. Some other things, beautiful grounds. I think the leaves will probably be pretty much off the trees by then, but anyway, so I got 15 rooms reserved, and let me know if you want to go. Okay. We'll carpool. It's kind of pay your own. I think a single room there, if you're a single, I think it's like $80, $90, something like that. If it's a rooming situation, might be like $55 a piece. I'm not sure what that is. You can actually find out on the website if you wanted, but so you don't pay the parish. We just all go together and you pay St. John's. Okay. I've been having trouble whistling lately, which I'm glad I could just make that sound because I like to whistle. I had a little work done on my front teeth. They were chipping and getting thin, and ever since then I feel like I sometimes trip on my words a little bit and I'm having more trouble whistling. So another limitation in life. Let's see. Maybe is that most of the... Kelly is looking to get some youth out there in the neighborhood serving. So if you know anyone who's maybe a senior citizen or for other reasons would have trouble raking their own leaves, do let us know. We would love to have people tell us, why don't you go rake so-and-so's leaves? Because I think the problem is we usually have more volunteers than there are yards to rake. Could be the opposite sometime, and don't feel bad if that's the case, but so let us know if you know someone like that. I'd like to thank Wayne for cutting down a big old dead ash tree last week, and Jim and Steve have been working like crazy trying to get the brush. That was their project today, to get the brush over to on Jeffers Road. There's a place where you take yard waste, and so they've been they were kind of our lawn mowing crew, and we had this whole tree project has really taken a lot of their time and energy, so I hope they don't get too burned out. But thank you guys for being so good at what you do and putting so much time and care into the work. So keeping our grounds looking beautiful. Our pilgrimage is full again. I was asking for like maybe one single woman and one Paula step forward, like I really want to go. So I hope everyone else who signed up is stays healthy. We'll be having another pilgrimage if you want to go in June 25. And that'll be nice because the days are long. Some people would like to go, but they're deciding not to because the heat. Probably be a high of about 90 each day from what I can see. It's warmer in the Sea of Galilee area. Sea of Galilee, if people don't know, I mean, it's, what would it be like in the US? I don't know. I don't know if I could compare it. It's below sea level, so in the summer it gets really quite hot. July, August are harder than June, so we're going in early June. It won't be the worst time. And then Jerusalem, even though it's south, we'd usually talk about, let's go down. Look, there's a kayaker. Hey. People usually talk about, let's go down to Chicago or something because it's south. And it's how we see it on maps. But even though it's south of Sea of Galilee, Jerusalem, it's an uphill climb because Jerusalem's quite a ways above sea level. And so they always go, let's go up to Jerusalem. We go up to the mountain of God. Yeah. So anyway, be cooler in Jerusalem, I guess is what I'm saying. And it's going to be so hot at the Dead Sea, we're just going to spend a day at the day spa. We won't spend an overnight there in Jordan. But anyway, that's June 25. I need to start getting a list for that. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about the Synod. So, I don't know if you've been hearing, it depends what news outlets you watch. I think it's really kind of exciting. Myself, a lot of people I think are trying to stir up some fear, like they're going to change all this stuff that we count on is not changing. Synod's about listening. It's not so much about contentious issues that we're going to change teaching on or something. It's about kind of a new way of being church. And so there's lay people, there's bishops, there's priests, there's women, there's men, and they're all going to gather to discuss what all the countries of the world have sort of given as feedback. We had a listening session at St. James a little over a year ago, and we sent our report to La Crosse, and they took all the parish reports for what people thought about church and what was great about church and what was difficult about church. And that all got synthesized, and there was a national synthesis of all the dioceses. And I heard that's a beautiful document. I've got it downloaded, but I haven't read it yet. You can just Google synthesis Synod Catholic, and it'll pop up. It's on the United States Council of Catholic Bishops website, usccb.org. And I've just heard many great things about that document. So there's all these documents. There's one from Canada, one from the US, one from France, one from Ghana, one from Brazil, so they'll all be talking about that and praying in a spirit of humility and openness to the Spirit. So we should be praying for them in the next few days. It just started today with Mass. I got a few things. Anyway, I mentioned them fears. Some people are saying, I read one comment that really disturbed me. It's like, it's not a real gathering because there's lay people at it, and it should only be for bishops, and at the lowest we could go is priests. It's just so that's what they call clerical, like the Holy Spirit only works through ordained people, and that really bothers me, so when I read comments like that, I think, wow, gosh, I mean, that's too bad. I'm glad that some lay people are there representing their layness and are part of the conversation, So, what did I see? It may be a grappling thing. I don't think they're going to really dig into a lot of issues. I think some media outlets are trying to say, they're going to try to do this. They're going to talk about ordaining women or doing this or that. And they might talk about whatever, but it's not really a legislating kind of thing. And as I mentioned in chat some time ago, what do healthy families do? They talk about stuff, right? To say, all this is going on, if people are thinking about it, but we can't talk about it. That just seems extremely unhealthy. If there's one thing I can say about Pope Francis, he seems like a very mature man. He seems very prayerful, grounded in the Spirit, confident, and pretty well adjusted in terms of his personality and everything. I think he's he fell in love as a young man. I always think that's a good sign, and he grew a lot from that and chose to be a priest, and I think he's embraced that really well in his life. Anyway, so he's open, he's not afraid. He doesn't live in a lot of fear, and I think a lot of the objections of what's going on are based on fear. So, you know, what does he say? I looked at his homily from today's Mass. Talked about the loving gaze of the Lord. Invites us to be a church that with a glad heart contemplates God's action and discerns the present time. To know that God is looking at you with a loving gaze and wants you to think about life and church and faith. And I'll just kind of read these random comments. And to try to quell the fears that people think they're going to be changing all these things and teaching and stuff, he says, we can never depart from the sacred patrimony of truth received from the fathers. But at the same time, we must ever look to the present, new conditions and new forms of life. We're not, let's see, what's this say? I'm trying to read my own writing. I can't, it looks like fact. Today, I think I put fact, but I meant face. Not face today's challenges and problems with a divisive and contentious spirit, but on the contrary, we should turn our eyes to God, who is communion. I love that. God is communion. It's not just our need to be in communion with God, but that's what God is. Father, Son, Holy Spirit in a loving communion, wants us to live like that, in awe and humility. And some people, I think, are criticizing the Synod like we're trying to make ourselves attractive to the world, that the world will look fondly on us, and we shouldn't be preoccupied with that. We should be truth bearers. And I think Francis would say we're not, well, what he said is that we don't want to make ourselves attractive to the world. We're not seeking earthly glory, but to reach out to the world with the consolation of the gospel in a better way and to everyone. So I think Francis has the greatest respect for truth and teaching and doctrine, and knows it well. And I think maybe what he senses in the church is that maybe that we need more love. And we need to be always reaching out. Why are we here? Why are we church? So he's got so much focus, right, on the people that lead desperate lives, whose lives are cut short due to poverty, the refugees, and I mean, that's just one example of his way of thinking, and I think leads with the basic, he sees the big picture. Why are we here? We're here to love one another, right? We're here to try to reflect the love of God to one another. What's that prayer that I like? I think maybe I mentioned, I think I mentioned in the homily, not in the chat, but that we might, one of the Eucharistic prayers for reconciliation, that Jesus came that we might turn again to God and find our way to one another. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. So he said, we exist only to bring Christ to the world. That's why we exist. That's why church exists. Only to bring Christ to the world. So those are some of the things. And will there be changes that come out of this? I don't think anything real definitive, but where did he say? Some article I read today is this not exploring contentious issues as much as practicing a new style of being church, where you don't have to be afraid to talk or to mention experiences. How can we best love people and all people in all their different situations? That's kind of what it's about. And some people are, sometimes we've fear change, and this, I guess, even if it's not like a moral change, it's a change of emphasis or a change of way of doing things. But take something like love. So love your neighbor. That never changes. That's the command. But how we understand that, how they understood that in the first century, how we understood that in the 1700s, how we understand it today, what does love demand of us? That might change how love one another looks. Cardinal Newman, so like slavery, for example, love one another, in America in the 1700s might have meant, be nice to your slaves. Well, in the 1800s, it meant free your slaves. And so things changed. So Cardinal Newman, he wrote this thing on the development of doctrine. We had a Newman Parish here. I worked in Newman ministry for 17 years, campus ministry. He said, in another realm, things are different. But here on earth, to live is to change. And to live well means to have changed often. And we used to put that on a bookmark, and when they would graduate, we'd give them that as their big gift, their gold watch for graduating college. But I thought that's good stuff. And so today's Feast of St. Francis, and Pope Francis mentioned that in his homily today. And the big revelation to Francis was he was praying, and the crucified Christ sort of almost became alive to him, and he felt that Christ was telling him, repair my church, repair my church. And he went about, he took it literally at first. He was good at like bricks and mortar and fix windows and stuff. And then he figured out it was more like, my church hasn't been paying enough attention to the weak and the outcast and the poor. And you gotta do that. That's gonna be your big thing. Don't let people get too complacent in their lives. Help them live the communion that they celebrate in Eucharist. And so that's what repairing church was. And in his homily, he just said, well, repair my church. The church is always in need of repair. There's never been a time in the church history where we haven't been in need of repair, but because we're made up of forgiven sinners. So, I love it. So and he just spent about I thought he might talk more about St. Francis because of his name and everything on the kickoff of the Synod, but I think that's why it started today on October 4th. Speaking of which, I think I can get this in a few minutes. If you don't want to hear the story, you don't have to. It's my favorite St. Francis story. I told it to the school children today. I told them we'd unpack the meaning of it in the classrooms when I visit. But so I do this every 3 years for sure in church on is it the first or second Sunday of Advent in cycle A, when the first reading from Isaiah is that on God's holy mountain, the wolf will lie down with the lamb, and the cow and the bear shall be neighbors, and the child shall play at the cobra's den. That story. No harm shall come to any of my creatures. Anyway, so the story is this. So long ago, I credit John Shea for retelling this in his own dramatic way. Beautiful story that's dribbled down for us for the last 800 years. So long ago, 800 years ago, in this mountain town around northwest of Rome, there was a city that was, the people were very proud of their city. It was like this beautiful city, and they took care of it. There was this town square in the middle of town, and there's nice brickwork all around it. And if there's ever a little weed that grew up between the bricks, it didn't last long because the people would pluck it out so it would look perfect again, And they'd travel around on the weekends. They had their little uniforms. They had this kind of bright red uniform they'd wear, and people would see them coming, and they'd say, "Friends, where are you from?" And they would say, "We are from Gubbio." That's how they said it, proud and defiant, and that's how they were. Well, one day, from the hillside woods around Gubbio, a shadow emerged, and it loped across the fields, and it went into the town square, and it went into a dark alley, and it pounced. And the next day, a body was found, its clothes in shreds, bones broken, dead. The people were aghast, and they gathered the next day at that beautiful fountain in the plaza, and they said, "How could this happen? It must have been just someone passing through. It'll never happen again. There's some vagrant or something, And so that night, they all locked their doors, all except one person. And the next day, his body was found, clothes in shreds, bones broken, dead. And the people gathered. They didn't know what to make of it. How could this happen again? How could this happen again? And then an old woman spoke. She said, as I get older, I don't sleep so well in the night, And I looked out the window at about 2 a.m, and I saw it. Eyes on fire, teeth shining in the moonlight. It was a wolf, a lean, gray wolf. And the men were quick to respond. "We have swords, do we not? We'll go kill the wolf." So they went off to the woods to kill the wolf. The next morning, their bodies were found. Clothes in shreds, bones broken, dead. Now the people were aghast the next morning. Oh, the wolf is killing our people, this wolf. We have to stop it. How can we do it? I don't know what to... And a little girl kind of raised her hand. I heard there's a guy who talks to animals in a CC down the road. Maybe we could ask him to talk to the wolf and tell it not to kill us anymore, maybe. People told her to be quiet, little girl. Shh, it's an adult thing. And they talked for another hour and a half, 2 hours. Nobody had really anything that people liked. And then one guy said, hey, there's this guy who talks to animals in the CC. Why don't we try him? We can ask him, tell that wolf, keep the 5th commandment, thou shalt not kill. Or if it doesn't understand scripture, just tell it to go to Perugia or Spoleto. They wouldn't even know they had a wolf there. They're such rough and tumble towns. And so they said that was a good idea. The little girl just rolled her eyes. But they went, and they looked out, got to the outskirts of Assisi, and they saw this little man on a broken church wall with brick and trying to move rocks around. And they said, do you know of a holy man around here who talks to animals? And he said, I don't know much how holy I am, but I'm the one known for talking to animals. My name is Francesco. And they said, well, we got this problem. There's this wolf, and it's killing our people, and we want you to talk to it and to tell it to keep the 5th commandment, or if they won't keep the 5th commandment, tell the roof to just go to another town, bother somebody else, not us. Francis just smiled, said he'd see what he could do. That night he went out. There's a new moon, super dark. He just walked into the woods. Couldn't even see the tip of his finger in front of him. But he felt the wolf was right there. And he sat down. They could feel each other's breath. He stayed there maybe just sitting for about a half hour. And he said 2 words, brother wolf. He got up and went home. Next day, all the people from Grubia said, well, did you see the wolf? Did you talk to the wolf? Did you tell it to keep the 5th commandment? Did you tell it to, or if that didn't work, to go to Perugia, Spoleto? And Francis said, yeah, I did, but I didn't tell him that, no. But I got a solution to your problem. That's the good news. So he stood up. He was a short guy, so he kind of stood up on the edge of the wall he was building so everyone could see him. He said, friends of Gubbio, I have a solution to your problem. All you got to do is feed your wolf. And they said, they looked at each other like, and they said, did he say our wolf? It's not our wolf, one. It's a wolf. It's a bad wolf. We want it dead. We don't want it to feed it. And they all just kind of went away kind of disgusted. And that night a shadow emerged from the woods, went across the field, through the town square, into an alley, and a door opened, and a shaft of light, and an arm with a bowl of food in the hand, and it was placed right below the wolf's mouth. The wolf looked at the light, looked at the giver, and looked at the gift, and ate the food and went home. The next night, same thing happened. Another door opened, another shaft of light, another bowl of food. The wolf ate it. Nobody was killed again. And it wasn't long before every man, woman, and child in Gubbio had fed the wolf. Well, they still travel around, you know, and they go to different towns. A little bit different attitude. They'd walk in, people would come see them, and they'd say, strangers, where are you from? And they'd say, oh, we're from Gubbio. You have a lovely town here too. And they'd say, oh, they'd make fun of them because a wolf is a sign of shame, you know. They'd say, oh, we already have a wolf in Gubbio. Is that true? And they'd just say, yeah, we have a wolf. And we feed our wolf. And they say that first Francis, one of the things he did, he was the first one to invent the nativity scene. It was live with real baby, real Mary and Joseph, you know, and real ox, sheep, and real donkey, you know. And they say at that very first live nativity scene, there was also a wolf. So that's like my favorite story. I'm gonna unpack it. I can maybe talk about the meaning of it later. We're running out of time here. But see, if you like that story, you can tell me what you think it means. Okay? Well, I'll just let you on this feast of St. Francis. Look at those geese going by. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and all creation is shouting for joy. Come dance in the forest, come play in the field, and sing, sing to the glory of the Lord. God bless you.